Hi everyone. Bit of a change of pace this week, obviously we were expecting to do. Hi James. We were expecting to do episode 2 of this series of Before the MCU. We have recorded it. It will air next week. It's The Mask with Jim Carrey. Obviously, unfortunately, the sad news this week was that Richard Donner, one of the all-time great directors, passed away at the age of 91. So we thought we'd have a little tribute episode.
I think it was telling of his breadth of work when I was like, I've only seen Superman, and you were like, really? I was like, oh wait, no, I've seen all the Lethal Weapons and the Goonies, and
yeah. He's an odd director, isn't he? Because he's so prolific, and yet at the same time, it's so easy to forget that everything he's done. I think it's because obviously he is a contemporary of Spielberg, and in many ways he was that. And I don't want to say it this way, but in many ways he's sort of the step down from Spielberg. Like he's like the next tier down, at least in the way that maybe he's marketed
or pop culture
or people
remember.
Pop culture remembers.
Despite, in a weird way, that people love Superman for me, people love Lethal Weapon, people love the Goonies, and they love them. But that doesn't translate into
loving the director.
In the same way that, say, people love Jaws, but they love Spielberg. People love Indiana Jones, but they love Spielberg.
They love Spielberg, yeah.
And potentially it's just... and really, I think that more comes down to... It's really just a case of Spielberg is a more front face. Like, Spielberg himself turned himself into a marketable property.
Yeah,
I don't think Donner ever turned himself into an IP. Like he made an IP, but
No, you're right. An intellectual property that, like, Spielberg has a certain value, like to that name. You put Steven. I mean, obviously, we're going to talk about Goonies. Steven Spielberg produced Goonies. It's a Steven Spielberg produced film.
Yeah.
So, like, in a lot of the time, you will think of the Goonies as if for Steven Spielberg as much as you'd think about the Goonies for Dick Donner.
Yeah, Donner is an amazing director.
When I was a kid, I actually remember thinking of Goonies more for Steven Spielberg than
I think
Donner.
People do. And I think Donner is an amazing director, and that's his job.
Yeah.
And that's what he does. Like, it doesn't go like... Although, have you heard... I've reading someone telling a story about him the other day, and it cracked me up. How he got Gene Hackman to shave his moustache for Superman.
I didn't hear about the moustache. No, I know. Obviously, I mean, we'll refer to the wigs in a bit, but
so he wanted him to shave his moustache for Superman, and Gene Hackman wasn't having any of it. So he's like, "Well, how about this? You shave yours, and I'll shave mine." And Gene Hackman was like, okay, yeah, that's fair. You go first. He was like, no, I think it's fair you go first. So Gene Hackman shaved his moustache off, and then Dick Donner just peeled off a fake moustache. And, and apparently, whatever issues they were having, Hackman respected the... respected it enough that it's like, okay, fine. We're fine now. Kudos to you.
Yeah, exactly. Obviously, it was quite famous that like he refused to cut his hair, like to shave his head.
Yeah.
For the film, and of course, when you do finally see Lex Luthor at the end, with a bald head, it is a skull cap. And of course, they didn't want to risk using a skull cap throughout the entire thing because you will see the seams at some point. It's inevitable, and that's why you see Hackman in multiple different wigs throughout the thing. Or obviously, when he's getting out the pool, he's got his swimming hat on to hide any hair that he does have, and there's some lovely little tricks there that actually, because of Hackman's refusal to cut his hair off actually added a bit of depth to the Luther character.
Yeah.
It made him more self-obsessed in a way, and actually helped to emphasize certain characteristics and certain mood changes. Obviously, a different wig would reflect different mood changes, and I thought that was really nice.
Well, shall we start with
I
Superman?
mean, should we start with Superman? I mean, obviously,
I know that's a film
I
that
know
means a lot to you.
it does. There we go. I deliberately put one on for this. Yeah, I mean, like as a kid, my dad worked a lot. Like he worked very long hours, Monday to Friday. He was lucky enough to have an office job, but it was like a very long office job. So come the weekend, when I did get to see him, it was quite often that he was knackered. And of course, we lived up in the frozen north of County Durham. So in the winter, it was covered in snow and what have you. So what we quite often do is just sit down and watch films, and Superman was one of those films. And it slowly became my favourite as a child, and we'd watch it a lot, obviously. And so for purely nostalgic reasons, obviously it means a lot to me for that. But as I've aged, as I've grown up, as I've studied cinema properly at university, I've learned how to make films. I've made some films, written some films, learned to appreciate the craft as well as the art form and what have you. Like I've started to spot more and more things while watching this film. I still get ridiculously excited watching it sometimes.
Like I think
It's
I think it's a scene from Superman 2, but it's been doing the rounds a lot lately of where Lois shoots Clark.
yeah,
And just be like shift like that film, like Superman the movie and Superman 2 as well, but
well, they were meant to be shot back to back.
yeah.
So some of Superman 2 that most people have seen, it's about 30% of the film, I think, is Richard Donner's
But
work.
the
He
performances,
was removed from the project, and Richard, and it was another Richard. I can't remember his bloody name now. But he finished the film off. Well,
yeah,
reshot it.
the
So.
performances that Donner gets from specifically Chris Reeve and
Margot Kidder.
Margot Kidder are just phenomenal. Like, why I think it is still a crying shame we've not had a proper modern Superman film that feels like Superman. And even for these, like this film is a Superman film of a different era.
Oh yeah, totally.
It's not a, but like it completely sells Superman, man. Like that. Superman is good. Just he's a good guy. That's pure and simply the point of Superman is that he's just he's just kind. He's just decent.
I mean, I saw a tweet the other day. Someone who has written an essay on Superman and the necessity of 78 film in the modern era.
Yep, you've frozen, mate.
And one of the points that was made with that is that there's not a single fight in this entire film. Superman doesn't fight anyone.
You've frozen.
Like, doesn't have to, like, it's about being, it's about saving cats. It's about like, are you still there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Frozen.
Yeah, you'd frozen for me.
Hopefully, you'll come back.
I could hear you.
Or hopefully, I'll come back.
Okay, you're back for me now.
It might be that I've frozen at his end as well. There you go. Hi.
Okay, hi. I could hear you all along. You froze. And then you came back, but then I don't think you could still see me. So those technical glitches are probably not going to be cut out.
Maybe not.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to my point. So the Yeah, there's
Yeah,
not
there's
a
no
fight scene in
fights.
it. There was no fights. It's just Superman saving cats and like taking down
I think it's okay for
like
Superman to have fights, but
it is okay for Superman for house fights, but he doesn't need to. I think that's the thing that like we're so
then
obsessed nowadays. Obviously, like at some point we'll do a proper Superman episode.
for the most part, Superman's biggest villain is someone he can't fight, right?
Yeah.
Superman's, especially since, and obviously it's changed. He was, and that's why he's in this film he's the greatest criminal mastermind of our time. And in earlier comics he was a mad scientist, but from pretty much 86 onwards, Superman's biggest villain has been capitalism.
Yeah.
Like, Superman's biggest villain has been Lex Luthor, businessman. Lex Luthor, president. Right? I think it's telling that, and it's worth noting that Superman's roots are very much in being a hero of a working class, specifically a hero of working class Jewish people. Like, that's what that character is born out of. He was, in his earliest appearances in comics, he was sticking it to corrupt landlords. Like,
Yeah.
it is who Superman is at his core.
At his core.
But yeah, Donna goes a little heavy on the clean sci-fi aesthetics. I think I'm someone who thinks it's a great movie. It's not really necessarily, outside of the central performances, my preferred take on Superman.
And that's fair enough.
But again, that's an age thing more than anything. I think it encapsulates the Superman of its time very, very well.
I think the thing is that like it gets the essence of what a core of Superman should be. Like, obviously, you can then embellish that with modern sensibilities and tastes.
The dressing
and stuff like
around that is very much of the time it was made.
Yeah.
This is what Superman was. It's like we talk about, like, there's the talk about how Batman isn't like the 60s Batman wasn't serious enough, wasn't like for comics, but like, you know, it was the 60s. The Batman TV show isn't unlike for comics. Like, the grim dark era of super serious comic book storytelling, where it's all dark and gritty, doesn't come in until the 80s.
Until after this film. And I think, I mean, it's just an incredible cast as well. I mean, obviously, you've got the big hitters. Marlon Brando playing Jor-El. He was the name that they went for to get the money. And again, we'll have an actual dedicated Superman episode at some point, so we won't go too far into that. You've got Glenn Ford playing Jonathan Kent, who, for as limited time on screen as he is perfect. And I mean, he's probably on screen for 4 minutes, and it's still heartbreaking when he dies. Like, to get that, like, I mean, that's a director doing his best. That's an editor doing their best. And Glenn Ford just absolutely smashing that character as well. You know, for 4 minutes of work, it's just absolutely outstanding. And then, of course, you know, the younger, lesser known cast. Margot Kidder had done a couple of things at this point. She was in Black Christmas back in the day. The original version, which was a slasher film.
Don't think anyone encapsulates Lois Lane as
well.
Like, I'm a Terry Hatcher Lois fan, but even then,
I mean, again,
but yeah, this is more for a Superman.
We'll go into
episode.
detail in the Superman episode.
I'm going to say,
Well, we do the Superman
Yeah.
episode. Get ready for a visual essay because I'm going hard on that
So
one.
moving past
Um,
Superman, then
yes.
Lethal Weapon.
Aye. All four of them.
Yeah.
Well, four of the six if you include the two Always Sunny in Philadelphia episodes, obviously. But
But it's
um,
why potentially Lethal Weapon as a franchise is more consistent than Die Hard as a franchise.
certainly.
Um, I like the Lethal Weapon films. It's been a while since I've seen them.
Mm.
Like I can't remember the last time I actually watched them. So I have I have a very vivid image of a trampoline scene.
Mm-hmm.
But the beats.
It certainly feels like maybe a little mini series for us,
Yeah.
like watching the four Lethal Weapons.
Maybe when we wrap before the MCU, we can do maybe a 80s action films. 80s
Yeah,
and
that
90s
sounds
action
good.
films.
Hmm.
You know, before everything
I'm
became
game.
slick. Or at least
I'm
modern
game for that.
slick.
Yeah, modern slick.
For
Yeah.
what I've it's slightly off topic is what I've been noticing with before the MCU stuff, like
mm,
I don't want to be honest, they still good films get made today. They do.
they do. Yeah.
But and this is mostly nostalgia talking.
Mm.
But for this, there's a visual feel to films of this era that you don't, and partly it's because as a shift to digital has happened away from film, as more CG has become implemented, as more
even
they
though,
feel for colder imagery. Like I think imaging is colder
even those who still
nowadays.
use film, it's a different grade of film
Yeah.
now than it was then. Like science has moved on, so even
Film
if they
was
are
warmer.
using, yeah, it was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
For
film was
like
warmer.
I imagine lens technology's changed.
Yeah, it has.
Like
It
it's
all
probably
has.
refined.
But yeah, I mean, it's a great action quadrilogy, right?
Definitely. And because it does have the same director behind the chair, it does feel like it possibly is a
Yeah.
quadrilogy. Like you could argue that it's all four.
It's not so much.
I mean, yeah,
It's a
decided to
quadrilogy as
make the
opposed to a
sequels.
franchise.
Yeah, like because it's the whole team
I know
having a crack at it.
they've done the TV series remake recently, and
Yeah, which I watched the first season of was fantastic. And like
Damon
I
Wayans was
haven't
a strong casting choice.
very strong casting choice, and like as was the guy who played Riggs. Just unfortunate, obviously, that
He
he's
went off the rails.
he's a yeah.
You know, much like the
yeah.
much like Mel Gibson, I guess. So
Yeah, indeed. I didn't because I haven't. I want to go back and watch it all actually because I thoroughly enjoyed the first
I want
season.
to say
I
it's on
haven't
Prime.
seen season two, and then season 3 is with Sean William Scott.
Oh yeah,
Because they didn't.
he seems to be having a bit of a resurgence lately.
Yeah, a little bit, and I'm glad for it because, like, in the right roles, actually, he's really good.
I enjoyed Bulletproof Monk back in the day.
But yeah, I mean, I imagine like because I know he doesn't play Riggs. Like in the show they fire Riggs or what have you. So he's playing Riggs's replacement, but obviously he's like a similar character. Yeah, which is fair enough. But yeah, I mean, I think I always slightly lean towards the first two Die Hards, definitely.
Yeah.
Personally,
I wonder if.
Although I do
this
think,
is actually
you're
a part of his career as well. Superman aside, like, and Goonies aside, like his other two big films, we would say are Lethal Weapon franchise and The Omen.
Yep.
So I wonder if there's an element of like, oh, The Omen's great, but you know, there's Exorcist. Lethal Weapon's great, but Die Hard. Like,
I mean, even with Superman, I mean, the thing is that like you look at what Superman does, for its time, and it's 12 months late.
because Star Wars.
Superman, Star Wars, yeah, like if Superman had come out before Star Wars, there is a reasonable chance we'd be talking about Superman in the same way we talk about Star Wars,
Yeah,
because it was that grade of film. It had that grade of special effects. It had it was a grand
it was as groundbreaking, but
ground. Yeah, it was as groundbreaking. It was as positive. It was because obviously
it
the
even
thing is that
shares a
like
theme
seven.
tune.
So, sorry,
It
it
even
doesn't
shares a
share a
theme tune.
theme.
I no.
It doesn't.
In all honesty, while there is similarities, I
Hmm.
prefer the Superman theme to the Star Wars theme, as blasphemous as that may be. I think there's
I
more.
mean,
It's richer. There's more nuance to it.
yes. Although I do think they're both absolute
Oh, they are.
masterpieces.
Don't
Like,
get me wrong. They're both
yeah.
fantastic. But if someone was like, you can only listen to one again, I'd probably pick the Superman one.
As a main title theme, probably. As a suite of music, that would be very, very hard to
Oh,
choose because
I was just specifically referring to the theme
yeah.
itself.
Although I watched it yesterday, Superman. Uh, not that I need an excuse to. Obviously, I bloody love this film. I have seen this film, not necessarily sat down and watched, but seen well over 300 times, which is, yes, a truly ridiculous number. I'm aware of that, but I have.
I've I've not seen The Omen. I don't
I
think.
have. It's been quite a while. Again, maybe this leads us down a bit of a Dick Donner thing, like potentially not do all four Lethal Weapons, but maybe we have
So
a little short Dick Donner season or something
moving
like
on
that.
to the other film, we're potentially going to talk a decent amount about. I think in
Mm,
this, uh, probably my favourite Donner film.
mm.
A film I recently resaw back in probably 2019 now, to be fair, so recently might not be the accurate
I mean, in the
word,
grand
but
scheme of things.
resaw it at the cinema
Mm,
because it had a bit of a clean up remaster for I think its eventual 4K release. So
mm.
and you're seeing this a lot now as films are getting cleaned up for 4K home releases. I think they realise, well, we've done all this work, we may well get some cinema money
I mean, why the
out
hell
of it.
not? In the end, 4K is essentially cinema grade anyway.
Yeah.
So, like,
So
especially on smaller screens.
as they're doing the cleanup
Um,
work and we have these new masters, and most cinemas are digital now.
yeah.
Yeah, we're getting a lot. It's even at smaller towns. It's easy to see classic films being reshown at
Mm,
cinemas, which I like.
mm.
I don't think we should stop showing old stuff at cinemas. Like it's nice when a film
No.
gets a re-release. And
I think it's
yeah, The
lovely.
Goonies,
Yeah. Great film.
such a good film. Like
It is,
for a
isn't
film
it?
that so
Yeah.
much stuff is, and we're slightly moving beyond it now as the 90s is becoming the decade to recreate. But we've just spent a good few years recreating the 80s, right? And I think
Mm.
The Goonies was the template for a lot of it. Like
Oh, yeah.
Stranger Things, very
Yeah.
popular, and
Yeah.
as much as it touches on horror elements, there's a lot of Goonies in there.
Well, I mean, The Goonies is scary-ish. Like, I mean, it doesn't have supernatural
No,
horror elements, but like, it's got a small-time criminal
Stranger
gang.
Things is a Stephen King Goonies mashup.
Definitely.
And going off the modern It films,
Mm,
I think take as much from Goonies as they do from, and obviously things like Stand by Me, I guess. But then they do the original It
yeah.
TV movie,
And
especially
Super
that
8,
first
obviously, when
that
Super 8
first
came
It
out.
film, which is all about the kids.
Yeah.
I mean, we've ourselves have worked on some Goonies knockoffs in our time.
We have, yeah. Although it's again, I suppose it's unavoidable when you
Yeah.
predominantly work with students, isn't it? So,
But
like,
for Goonies is just so it. Anytime, like it's a genre in and of itself. Like there is an RPG game called Kids on Bikes, that is designed to recreate the genre of kids on bikes, and that is 100% what Goonies is. It is the perfect
Kids
kids
on
on
bikes.
bikes film.
Yeah.
Nothing comes close to it. Nothing beats it. It is the like. If Raiders is the perfect example of the pulp adventure film, right? This is the perfect example of a kids on bikes film.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I think it's the most like, in some ways, it's probably the most like real in a
Yeah.
way.
It,
Because obviously, like Stand by Me is more real, but it's also a more adult film. It's a bit like more somber,
yeah.
and so
Well,
it isn't for kids. It's for adults who are trying to reminisce about their childhood
the
in a
Goonies
way.
replicates.
I mean, Goonies has everything that ET has, just without
I
ET.
mean, Goonies.
Like it.
Goonies
So
is almost like, because yeah, they get trapped, but there's an element of like you could take into like a reading of like how much of this is their imaginations amped
yeah,
up.
yeah. I mean, sure, it ends with a real pirate ship, but it could
Yeah,
quite easily have just been that they've found some planks of wood and an old box in a
the
cave.
villains
Um,
are relatively. They're not mundane in fact; they're very interesting, but they're mundane villains, right? They're
yeah, I
just
mean, they're not like they are a crime family, but it's not like they're a mob boss kind of
no,
crime family. They're just literally crooks that happen to be
and
family.
abusive crooks at that because of poor
Poor
Sloth,
sloth. Yeah.
who obviously the kids show a kindness to, and which is a through line
And
from
of course,
Superman into, because remember, it's better to be kind than it is to be nice.
indeed. And then, of course, Sloth was a big Superman fan, which of
Yeah,
course I never got the reference.
of course. Like
Um,
that's only just kind of
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, that
But
was,
yeah, I love the Goonies. And on the big screen, man, it's good. That'd be because obviously I was too young. I wasn't born to have seen it on the
yeah, certainly too young.
yeah on the
I
big
mean, sadly,
screen
I
first
was
time.
I wasn't born for Superman either.
But
Um,
watching it like in a cinema, like, and Goonies is a film for cinema. Like, I think a lot of people's nostalgia for it probably is on home releases.
yeah.
It is because it is the perfect Saturday, Sunday afternoon weekend film.
Well, I mean, I've said it before in like previous episodes that like for for me, I'm of a certain era where the
TV releases of
the TV release was as big culturally as the cinema release,
yeah,
because it was almost always at Christmas time. So the big film, be it an Indiana Jones or a Star Wars or something along those lines, an ET, like the BBC or ITV would get it and they would advertise it for months. And then it was that big thing of everyone would, like the whole family would gather around. And I've got a relatively big family and our family Christmases used to be huge. So it would be me and my dad and all my uncles, and we'd all sit down and like they'd all be like really excited because they'd potentially seen this film at the cinema, but I hadn't. I was too young. I either wasn't
yeah,
alive when it came out, or I was a baby, or something like that. And so, like the excitement in that room, you could feel it. And
yeah,
so that's why for me, like Temple of Doom is probably my favorite Indiana Jones film, because I was just old enough to remember the first time that Temple of Doom came on
yeah.
TV.
It's because
And so,
I remember TV releases being big, but at the same time, and I remember like for terrestrial
I mean,
channels fighting over who could get
yeah,
films, like ITV locking a franchise down or BBC
because I
locking a
mean,
franchise down.
by the time you were
VHS was a
probably
strong
experienced,
enough
well,
component
yeah, I
that
mean, video rental was bigger because when I was a kid, like not everyone had a VHS
the
player.
I mean
I mean, I've still got a beta player.
the Disney
Like,
Vault was something that was big when I was a kid.
yeah,
As in, a
of
big deal
course,
was
yeah,
made out of Disney films hitting VHS.
Yeah.
because it's like, oh, it'll be on sale for 6 months and then vanish and go back to the vault for
Yeah.
however long.
And of course, satellite TV or and cable.
Never had it.
No, but it had
Yeah,
become a more prominent thing by the time
and
you
Sky
were a certain
Cinema,
age.
and
So Sky was starting to get
it's proto
the
streaming in
films.
many a way, isn't it? Cable.
Yeah, essentially. So Sky was getting things a lot earlier than the BBC and ITV or even Channel 4 would. So, like, potentially some of that excitement had died
Yeah,
down a little bit. But yeah, I mean, like, The Goonies is certainly one of those films that I remember coming to TV. Like, it was one of those, like, big, exciting things. Those big events.
is that noise on your
Um,
end?
yes, it's a
Yeah,
train because I live in an old train yard, James. And so one of the major freight lines in this country actually runs behind one of the blocks of flats.
fair
That's
enough.
yeah.
But
I could probably throw a ball to said train line from the window.
yeah, so Richard
So
Donner, definitely
mm.
worth a. If you haven't watched his films, it's definitely worth going and watching some of his films. These
Well, I
are
mean,
all,
before we tie it up, I want to mention one more film.
yeah.
His last
Yes, a
film.
film I've not seen, but
Yeah,
you have a fondness
a
for.
film you haven't seen. A film probably a lot of people haven't seen, unfortunately. And obviously Richard Donner, we've already said, is most one of well, arguably for many most famous for the Lethal Weapon franchise. But his last film serves very, very well as an unofficial Die Hard film because it's a Bruce Willis film called 16 Blocks, where Bruce Willis plays an aging cop who's out of shape, worn out, run down, and he's tasked with getting a witness from one side of the city to another side of the city, so that they can get to the courthouse to rat out some organized crime, essentially. And it very much feels like what could have been the end of John McClane's story. Um, that this was after his divorce, and he's had to go back to New York, and he's kind of mentally broken down, and he's never made it past a certain rank because, of course, he was too much of a renegade in his youth, and then like his divorce has killed any ambition that he may have had off. And so this is him trying to do one last good thing before he retires. And it's an amazing performance from Bruce Willis. Mos Def plays the witness, and he's fantastic as the witness, and just a wonderful, absolutely wonderful, like action thriller. A really, really, really underrated film. And yeah, like I think obviously it's a shame that Donna didn't direct anything after that. Although
Yeah,
he would have been, he was 91 when he died the other day. And this was 2006
yeah. He
ish,
might have.
maybe.
He might have chosen like it might not. It might have
He
been a
may have just
choice to not have.
should just retire because he would
Yeah,
have been about 75. So,
yeah,
like, a decent age. Um, but yeah, I mean, obviously, if he was happy to retire after this film, then fair play because I think it's magnificent. And if you haven't seen it, definitely watch it, James. If we do a short Dick Donner season,
yep. I
which I
will
think
watch
we
it.
might do now, then yeah, I think 16 Blocks is a must.
So
Other than that, obviously Dick Donner's done tons of TV. He started out
yeah,
as a TV director. If you go to his IMDb page, the vast majority of his credits are actually as a TV director. Um, so he like Superman. To go back to Superman to finish the episode off, Superman did things for the industry that, like, again, we've said that if it came out 12
actually,
months earlier, it might have kicked off.
It's
like Star Wars did.
worth noting as well on the side that there's various comic writers and things, but various people who've interned for Dick Donner over the years have
Mm,
nothing but praise to say
mm.
for the experience and for the time working
Oh yeah, yeah.
for the man. Like
I mean, obviously, like,
it might just be that he has some interns who have gone on to be people, so you hear it more. But
mm,
like, yeah, like they have nothing but like, and I think that says something. If your interns are praising you,
mm.
that shows the world. That shows the kind of person you are, because interns are the kind of people that people aren't necessarily kind or nice or friendly to,
No, not
right?
often. No.
So if your interns generally university have nothing but praise for you,
Mm.
that's a sign that you're a decent person, I think.
And of course, he co-wrote a comic book about 10 years ago,
Yeah,
didn't
Jeff
he?
Johns interned in Back for the Day.
Yeah.
Jeff Johns obviously controversial figure these days for various
Mm,
reasons. But yeah, he did co-write. Richard Donner did co-write a Superman
mm.
comic.
And he did give his blessing to the 2006 film. Again, unfortunately, Bryan Singer, bit controversial again. But he, I know he was instrumental in getting the Marlon Brando footage
Yeah,
released so that Singer could use that in his film. With the magnificent Brandon Routh, who does um, an unbelievable job
yeah,
playing Chris Reeves Superman. But yeah, going back to Superman, just to quickly tie it off. Obviously, as I was saying, Dick Donner, really a TV director at the time. He had done Omen, which was a relatively low budget film in the grand scheme of things. Very successful, very well, like critically acclaimed, but relatively low budget. And then somehow the producers had the confidence in him to bring him on board for this, which is a
yeah,
lot like actually what Marvel's doing now. I know obviously this episode nearly was a before the MCU episode. Um, it's a lot like what Marvel's doing now, and even actually what DC has done as well. Like you look at Chris Nolan taking the Batman franchise on. Chris Nolan was not necessarily someone you thought, oh yeah, he'll do Batman, and yet like the success of his franchise. I know obviously you're not the biggest fan of like his films as Batman films, but as
oh,
films
they're
they're
great
magnificent.
films. They're just bad Batman
Yeah,
films.
yeah, which fair enough. Um, so I think that like Superman obviously set the trend of taking a risk really on choosing a director that isn't necessarily someone that you'd think of for such a massive film. Um, and because it was going to be massive, like this
Yeah,
had a big budget. Originally, they were shooting two films back to back. It was an icon of Americana.
it's worth noting
Um,
something like this hadn't really been done. Like this is the first
yeah,
real superhero
this is
film.
the first real superhero film. It's one of the very few proper big high concept
Yeah,
like cinematic films as well. Obviously, Star Wars came out beforehand, but Star Wars would have again had a big-ish budget, but it would have scraped and clawed to
I mean
make it.
Star Wars was
Um,
expected to be a bomb.
yeah, it was. I mean, Star Wars was turned down everywhere, whereas Superman would have been fought over. I mean, Superman. They got the writer of The Godfather to do the first draft for this film. Like it's like it was a lot of weight to put on a fairly an inexperienced cinema director. Anyway, not an inexperienced director. He'd done quite a lot at this point, TV wise. But yeah. So yeah, Richard Donner, a great loss.
Yes,
Although,
definitely.
to be honest,
But he's
at
lived life.
91, he'd lived a great life. He sounds like he was a wonderful human being. Um, he's made a huge impact on cinema as a whole, and to the lives of many. I mean,
Yeah,
it's not hyperbole to say I wouldn't be the person I am today without Richard Donner. That film, Superman, has shaped me. I am who I am because of that film, and many other things, obviously, but it has a significance. So thank you, Richard Donner.
Aye.
And thank you all for watching.
And on that note, we shall see you next week, guys.
Yeah. See you soon.